Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rolewise Podcast. Today, we thought we would dive into kind of a very important role playing game mechanic. And I think this is one of those game mechanics that can pretty much make or break an experience when it comes to like combat, how to resolve conflict, and everything like that. And it is action economy. Now, the reason why we decided we kind of wanted to reminisce about this is that it's been a little bit of time since we played DC 20, and DC 20 was probably one of the, I guess, most exciting games that we had played in terms of just player and DM like things that they could do in a single turn. And it also felt that there was a lot that they, because there were so many different actions that you could spend points on, and there wasn't like weird restrictions like a fast action, a slow action. Like you just had points, and you could choose to spend them how you wanted to. It allowed a lot of creativity for how each turn went. But I think that there are some games that maybe try for something and shoot for the sky, and they don't hit it. So I think today is a good day to talk about it. What do you think, Brent?
I agree. I think was this the one I suggested or the one you suggested?
I think you suggested. I think you wanted to talk about it.
So yes, I'm the one. I am. Yes, go.
Yes? I am super excited about this. Can you tell?
I am taking action right now.
You're taking action. So, okay. Brent, because you're the one who kind of has suggested this, I'm going to turn the tables.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So let's go ahead. And can you define, at least in your opinion, like what is action economy, at least in the context of tabletop RPGs?
I would say, and this is more of an opinion than me having looked it up, but action economy is the number of actions that a player or a group of players get in a turn versus the number of actions an NPC or something gets in a number of turns. So when we talk about, a lot of times when I talk about action economy, like in D&D, one of the things that happens is there's sometimes an imbalance because 4 players will have at least 4 attacks per turn versus potentially the big bad's 1 attack per turn, which they've done things, especially in 5e and newer editions to offset that, like legendary actions and stuff like that. But what happens is as you're trying to balance an encounter, that weight on the player's side where there's 4 actions versus 1, there's almost no amount of like power unless they're just like nuking a person like right away. There's no, like, it just gets off balance. Like even a very powerful monster that only acts once a turn isn't going to out action the 4 players. They'll just drown them in math, essentially. Like they'll just drown them in potential. And I think, and this has been talked about a lot. Like I think I heard Matt Colville once talk about how one of the things that he does to balance those big bad encounters is he makes little mook characters that can take a shot or 2, but they help that imbalance because they can even out the action economy. And you can sometimes do this the other way too. Like if you have 50 goblins versus your 4 characters, sometimes it says, oh, this will be like a cool encounter. Like there's a bunch of bad guys, but then you're like, oh, they hit you with 10 goblins, hit each player with 10 arrows.
It's true.
And it's like, oh, the players are just dead.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of turns, and it's always something interesting to watch because I think, in terms of definition, that's pretty much the same definition that I've always run by, pretty much like the number of actions you get in a single turn and basically giving each person an equal opportunity to react. Now, even within systems, I think that there's fluctuations. There may be skills, abilities, or whatever have you that allow a certain situation where a player could maybe act more than the other,
break the action economy.
But that's more like a special circumstance than just the general playing field that they try to establish. And it's interesting because when you go to like games like war games and you go to like Warhammer 40K is a great thing where that sometimes you have that entire unit of Gretchen that have an inability to hit, but if you have enough of them, you're going to hit enough.
Oh yeah.
That the simple roll of the dice means that you can kind of play the odds there. Whereas like
right, you can literally drown them in math. Like a lot of times that happens when you have in war games. That happens a lot when you have armies
and stuff.
Yeah, there are swarms where it's like they just have a lot of shots, and sure they don't hit often, but usually it's around half, and then they hit half and then wound half the time. Well, if there's 50 guys shooting a unit of 10 guys, you're able to either make that unit not a threat by whittling it down so far, or kill it outright.
Yeah.
You just literally drowning them in averages, and that happens, and that can happen in role playing games too with action economy.
It's true, and I think that it's I just like the war game example because it's really easy to materialize that because you're like, I have 50 goblins with blunderbusses. Well, if I hit 1 out of 6 times,
right, exactly.
I mean, I'm almost guaranteed 10 hits, and your unit of 5 is now.
I think the math that stood out to me in Warhammer 40K is at best it's half and then halved. So at best, half is going to hit, and then at best half is going to save. So if half is more than what you have in the unit of 10 guys, potentially, like if you get 15 wounds on them, like there's a good chance you're just going to wipe them out unless you're unlucky.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what makes it like easy to visualize there. And so when you think about action economies, I mean, like I said, I think we played DC-20 recently, which was kind of an eye-opening experience to just have lots of points to spend in a turn and how you wanted to spend them. But I guess, do you have some ideas in your head of some like games that really have well-defined, well-designed action economies where it's balanced between player and PC interactions?
No, because it's really hard. I think Pathfinder is interesting because again, the players just get a lot of raw actions, like you can attack 3 times per turn, etc. And then there's games that just aren't balanced at all. Like Earth Dawn doesn't care about your action economy because it's just all it's unbalanced. Like everybody's super powerful, so it doesn't really worry about it too much. I think action economy becomes a problem, and we talk about this pretty often in a tactical game versus a narrative game. Like games like Cult and Unknown Armies and I can't think of a fantasy game really off the top of my head that does it, but they don't have really an action economy to worry about because it's more like roll dice and see what narrative the combat is versus just I roll my D20, there's a 15 hit. Because that's where the action economy becomes kind of important, because that 15 hitting or not hitting becomes kind of a big deal in that case. But especially, so I think Pathfinder felt really nice when we did it. I think DC-20 felt really nice when we did it. But again, the characters felt powerful. If you juice a monster or a villain in either game, like if you're like, I'm gonna make them hard. Well, like what we in the DC-20 game, like the action economy of a bad guy or something doing passive damage every turn was bad. Like it could have killed both of us really quickly when we were fighting the acid beetles. Because it eliminates our advantage of action economy. Like it eliminates our ability to use those action points to do things because it just happens. And when that stuff breaks action economy, like for the players, that's when it gets really dangerous. Especially when it's like,
or really exciting.
Exciting. That's a good word. Or it's especially dangerous to characters like the Jeff's wizard was like, there's a timer. There's a 6-round timer on him standing in the spot before he's just down. And then if he's still in the spot, he's just dead because it starts doing damage to his unconscious body. So like those things that break action economy become really dangerous in those games.
It would, especially when action economy is a really big component of just the conflict itself. And I thought that was really interesting because in the alpha, at least DC-20, and we haven't really touched DC-20 for a little bit yet. We're kind of waiting.
Some of these may have changed,
we're waiting, but when we played it, there was a monster start pack that was released as part of the Kickstarter and everything like that. And I thought it was really great that he recognized as he's designing this that really action points by the monsters have to be kind of used judiciously by the game master, or else your damage output is going to go through the roof. And in a game like DC-20 where hit points are much more restricted because that the damage numbers are very different than they are in D&D, having a monster with a significant number of actions that they can perform each turn and then having multiples of said monster it gets out of hand really quick.
Right. I remember someone I played with once. This was Dungeons and Dragons, and he rolled up an adventure party to fight, and like that was bad. because they were essentially, they had all the abilities that our party did, and it was not okay. Like, it was really a bad combat because they matched everything that we did. They matched our action economy, they matched our advantages of hit points and everything, like skills and everything. And so once it's a match,
then it's just
that's
luck.
then it's just oh god, I hope our dice rolls are good enough.
Technically, there could be some tactical things that you do because there is a little bit of rock paper scissors that can happen in a game like D&D. Like, obviously get the wizard first. Those kind of things can change the tide of battle. But I agree that that's going to be a very well. Did the dice favor us that day? Because if you have your standard rolls, your party would be dead.
Yeah, and if you're not careful as a GM, I will say this: if you're not careful with GM, if you're matching action economy, like if you're customizing stuff for the party, if you're like, well, I'm gonna make an anti-wizard guy to go against a wizard, like the action economy is really gonna matter, because the minute that anti-wizard guy goes before your wizard, because he's designed that way, it could be a problem. And I think sometimes that's where balance gets kind of strange, is you're trying to make combats interesting, and so sometimes through action economy or abilities, you see people make design choices that like, oh, the players are just like, I don't know how we could have dealt with that.
Yeah. Well, and that's always frustrating too as a player, where you're just like, we just got basically overwhelmed.
Right.
Yay.
Well, yeah, the 50 goblins story, where it's like, oh, I didn't expect them to hit you 5 times a piece. It's like, because he's like, they were like, oh, they don't hit your armor class very often, and it's like, no, but there's 50 of them.
It's true, and
then in a case where you have a game where crits are a thing, their odds of crits go up too. Your odds of rolling 50 dice of rolling a crit go up.
Well, and so I think it's interesting because I know it sounds like we have a couple games that we really like how the action economy plays out. And I'm sure that there are other examples that people, and it sometimes turns into player preference, because I do know that people really like the action move component of like things like Dragonbane, and all that kind of stuff. They really like that concise. You get one action, one movement.
But yeah, Dragonbane flattens the entire economy out.
Yeah, it's like,
which is nice of it. You never expect anybody, like, it's 1-to-1. It flattens the entire. But again, if you're trying to do a big battle where it's the party versus 10 guys, it could get pretty sketchy pretty quick.
Oh yeah, definitely, and especially when it's like, if it was 10 monsters, because Dragonbane definitely would, like, the monster is the centerpiece of whatever combat you're trying to do, and the monster gets to go, because of the ferocious score, multiple times in a turn, and that makes up for the action economy a little bit, because A, they automatically hit every time, and B, their hits fucking hurt in most cases. Like they send you astral traveling pretty quick if you're not paying attention. Even your most armored character had a really rough encounter with a white, and that was a tough time. So,
and that's how they balance action economy for one-on-one encounter, is they give the monsters more actions.
Yep.
And they try to, and anytime it matches, it might be a hard encounter for you.
Well, and also I feel like in that game, your characters are just they're made more of paper mache than they are of heavy armor.
Well, anything that just hits is always going to be,
yeah.
Going more and just hitting is always going to be pretty scary.
Yeah. So in terms of like, I guess, so in terms of like things that we do like, obviously, like I said, DC-20 and Pathfinder are games that we like how the action economy plays out. Where have you found games that just didn't work out? Do you have something where it felt like the players had their hands behind their back, or it was just significantly unbalanced?
Well, I mean, D&D, I've ran into that action economy problem multiple times, where a big interesting combat turns into a big interesting slaughterhouse. Where the players just are, well, I mean, the 50 goblins thing isn't actually a joke. I don't think it was literally 50 goblins, but it might have been 40.
But that's literally how your character,
right? And the GM was like, "Well, you're supposed to run away," and it was like, "Well, yeah, I guess." I didn't. like we didn't, and
you didn't give us the hint that the 50 goblins had bloodlust in their eyes.
Well, and maybe, it was a situation where we were stupid. I mean, it is stupid for 4 guys to to charge 40 goblins or whatever on a hill shooting arrows at you. That's true, but it's one of those things where I thought it was more of a heroic game, and it wasn't really a heroic game. And so yeah, we just got action economy. Like, you just got action economy out. It was like,
you just rolled a bunch of dice, and then you guys were like,
yeah, we're dead. Yeah, and then and then it gets worse when one player goes down. It's like, our action economy is less.
Now less.
Well, action economy in Shadowrun is interesting because it's not like people can get more actions if they're faster. And in Shadowrun, going fast is important.
I feel like that's the only thing that matters in the game.
Right. Well, amount of damage is important too, but if you don't go fast in Shadowrun, what happens if you get hurt is you get modifiers, like negatives to your dice rolls the more you get hurt. So speed kills. So which is a lot of times like how is pretty realistic, really. Whereas like if a person gets hurt, their combat effectiveness goes down quickly. But like that, the action economy, if you go first and then again, like people only get one action if they're too slow, like that will rack it up pretty quick. And like balancing combats in that system, in my opinion, is pretty hard because it's like, this person's going first and faster. They boom you twice, and now you're significantly worse at what you're doing than you were before.
I want to say one of my friends, a mutual friend, I should say, played an adept that, like, I felt like I was in the kiddie pool while he was in the Olympic league, by comparison, because I was like, and I mean, I don't know how to break Shadowrun by any means. I just went through the character creation process, said, let's be a street samurai, let's have some fun. And his adept character was like I was like, I don't even know why I'm here. I just go over and smoke a cigar in the corner waiting for the adept to clean up the mess, And I was like, wow.
I feel like again, one of the things I like about Shadowrun is the world, not necessarily the mechanics. But I think action economy in Shadowrun is pretty hard. Action economy in Earthdawn can be hard too, because the rules basically said, at some point your adepts can just go as much as you like, do as many things as they want within reason. That's basically what the rule says. You can do whatever you
edition or one of the old.
Yeah, that's the newest. It's the newest edition too. It's like you can basically do whatever you want within reason, is what they say. Usually they take these types of actions, and you can do as many as you want.
That's pretty cool.
It is nice because, like I said, one of the things of especially those heroic fantasy games is it's like, I am a hero. I can do things that are cool. And then you have monsters in the game that steal your actions and steal your karma and make you bad at the game. But I think that's the two. I think that's the two methods of balancing action economy, right? It's either try and balance it by evening out the actions of both sides, or just say fuck it and don't worry about it at all, and be like, people do crazy shit in this game. Just go for it.
And it is interesting because I feel like there's a part of me that likes it to be a challenge for the players, and so I feel like asymmetry is okay either way. Like, players should feel like they have the upper hand at some point and be able to exploit that, but I also feel like there should be moments, especially in a game like D&D, where that asymmetry represents itself in a harder fight for the players, where they have to dig into abilities and all those kind of things. I've always not been a fan of like the D&D process of like, we go Nova, have a short rest. We go Nova, have a short rest. Right. Like, I don't really like that play style. So I've always altered our D&D games to be either grittier or harder in many ways. Like I think the last time we played D&D 5th edition, that was the only time I'd really actually played just straight up. Like every other time before that, there had always been tweaks, homebrew, something along those lines. Because I'm not a big fan of like, okay, well, you wail on each other till all of us are bleeding out of our eyes. If you get touched with a sword, you lose a limb. I don't care. Let's do this. Right. But like, I feel like there's just that point where that asymmetry is really important, because I do like when people go, okay, well, I recognize this fight isn't a good fight. And to your point with that 50 goblins, the players should be like, okay, well, we're heroic, but we're like,
we should run away.
We should definitely run.
Yeah.
And and in cases like where the actions can be leveled, I really did like Mines of Fandel, or like the Fandelver adventure, where you guys came across like the flaming skull and like I mean, it's funny as hell.
That almost killed us twice.
Yeah, that was the funny part.
Yeah.
the shrieking fireball and like
Right. And that's where action economy kind of becomes weird. Is like you have things that go hard, like do a lot of hit points.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they go first, it's like, oh, action economy doesn't matter because most of us are going to be dead.
Most of you are barbecued.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, though, one of the games that I know that you guys had played, and it was with a different group of friends, is like Cyberpunk Red. Or did you played Cyberpunk Red with them, like stuff? How was the action economy in that? I mean, I just feel like in my brain, like there's a lot of cybernetics and everything like that, and I'm wondering if it mattered at all.
Not really. It's the one. I mean, it's, if I remember right, and people can correct me if I'm wrong about the Friday Night Fights action economy, because that's what their chapter is called. It's Friday Night Fights. It's pretty much just one action, one move sort of thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And there's not like enhancements through cybernetics or anything like that.
I think if I remember right, the cybernetic enhancements make you go faster. Like you'll go first in a combat versus later, more actions. There might be stuff. We played a pretty low level campaign, so or one shot. So there might be things that make you go more or go, but most I think it's just faster. The rules in the Cyberpunk Red, is that the new? Yeah, the new one, Cyberpunk Red, is really streamlined. Like they just wanted to make it easy, and I think what's important is focus on the narrative of the combat, and try not to balance it so much as just focus on the narrative of the combat.
Yeah.
I mean, the dice are going to cause enough chaos, like. Especially in systems where it's not level, it's not flat, and you can do things like crit. Like the moment that your big bad can crit on a lower, especially a lower level party, they could die very easily. As somebody who is often the person that gets critted on in the party, and likes to, and takes naps, that's like it can be scary.
So, yeah, and I think it's interesting because there are some games that I still have yet to play that I want to play, and I'm really wondering how like GURPS handles action economy. I've been on a GURPS phase recently. I pulled out my 3rd edition book, and I'm like, oh, they have a 4th edition out now, so maybe I'll look at it, because we've been playing so many games like that are newer and everything like that. I'm like, well, how did the OG? How is the OG standing up? Because there's still a lot of people that play GURPS, and I'm wondering how
it's a decent universal system that can handle a lot of different game types. The problem that we ran into like last time is there's so much that you can do in the game that you can make things that just math you out. Like it's just like, oh,
I'm sure.
Do all this. It happened. Of course you're sure it happened in your game where it's like, do all this math up front. And then it's like, okay, your character's built now.
Yep. No, but I feel like it's one of my 2025 challenges. Is I think GURPS is now on the list for me to play. Like I know I want to play things like Electric State and everything like that, but I want to just
GURPS what though? GURPS means nothing.
Well, I want to play an adventure using the GURPS rule set, so there'll be some conversion and everything.
Right, but GURPS what? GURPS high fantasy GURPS? Do you want to play GURPS D&D? Do you want to play GURPS
Superhero maybe?
I have GURPS Werewolf down in my other bookshelf, which is one of the oldest game books that I have.
GURPS like Werewolf the Apocalypse, or
yep, it's Werewolf the Apocalypse converted to GURPS for some reason. I have no idea why this book exists.
Well, you know what I mean. If you want to roll up some guru,
we would be more likely to play Werewolf the Apocalypse than GURPS, where I have no interest in running a GURPS game in any world.
I mostly just want to do it because I was, you made me pull off some of my books. Obviously I have my hero system right here. I looked it up and I was like, I felt the pages are still so crisp from being so new that I was like, oh man, it's such a shame. But I think
I think we should do videos on whatever world you decide we're going to run GURPS in. GURPS Wild West, GURPS Spies. What does this GURPS game look like?
It's going to be entirely random. I'm gonna get one of those plot generating things out, and I'm just gonna like use the tarot and dice rolls and just generate something.
GURPS riffs where one of us is going to be a cowboy and a vampire and a robot.
I'm a ley line walker
and a psychic.
Yep. I'm from another world.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
There you go.
Well, I mean, it would just you and Jeff. So what I
Oh,
might do is
you wouldn't do it at the home table? You wouldn't do a mini campaign at the
I
home
would
table?
I wouldn't subject everyone to it. I would just have a few guys.
I am fighting against this not doing a mini campaign of it now.
No, not a mini campaign. It's just an adventure. Yeah,
Mini campaign with the four of us, with the home table, the four of us home table.
you got three
Really stretch that action economy that we're talking about, where two of us isn't really going to test the action economy in groups, but four of us will.
Maybe I'll think about it. I'll see what everyone wants to do. Because it haven't introduced this to the table, and I think right now we got Dragonbane, we got what did
Death in Space.
Death in Space is on that table, and then I'm sure we have some other stuff. I don't care who I play Electric State with. I've got the book; it's right here. I got to play it.
Death in Space has no action economy in it. It is a narrative game through and through, like Mothership, where it doesn't really have action economy.
That's fair. I just want to see how the OGs play it, because I mean, GURPS would be a good one to really try. I still want to play some of the things like 13th Age and see what they've done, because I've been adjacent to those games and seen what they.
I have the new I'm gonna get the new Blue Planet at some point. We can try that. That is gonna have funky action economy, I assume.
So
it's not a
how
combat
about this?
game.
So honestly, I think that in terms of like action economy and everything like that, I'm curious what everybody else has to say about it, because I feel like for games that have any sort of like heavy mechanic based conflict resolution system, who does it right? What indie games have had a lot of fun with it and done it differently? Because I mean, honestly, D&D, I think in 3.5, I remember it being pretty borked in 3.5. So I don't even know.
Action economy in 3.5. I decided 3.5 is my favorite D&D because it wasn't, and I think that's partially because it wasn't that well balanced. Like challenge rating was a nightmare in 3.3, and I think that's really the game that had a problem with action economy. Like 5, they've done things to try and fix action economy, like legendary actions and stuff like that, to give a single monster an advantage to hang with the players.
Well, at least a big bad. Like a single goblin is just a single goblin and should run for its life. But like a big bad.
That's why you make him a goblin monk and make him an NPC.
Whatever.
Like just roll up that goblin monk and give him 37 actions to crush your players with.
He just says hi-ya, and then one of you goes down. So but yeah, I'm really curious what everybody else has to say. I would like to, because I like narrative games quite a bit, but I cut my teeth on D&D and those kind of games. So I have a fond place in my heart for them. So I just like giving them a try. Lancer is a big book that I still have on my shelf to read. There's a few other crunchier games that are out there that I want.
Lancer would be an interesting experiment in action economy because that's a tactical game.
Mm-hmm. It is. So there's a few things out there, but I'm curious what everybody else has to say. And because did I ask for it at the beginning? I know I said I was going to, but I didn't. If you've made it this far into the video, we really appreciate it. And we're almost at 500 subscribers, which for us, that's like a cool thing to have people, stopping by, commenting, and engaging with us, because we're just some yokels in the internet universe, as I call us, I guess.
On the YouTube.
Yeah, we're on the YouTube, and if you want to hang out with us, subscribe, like the video, so that other people might get recommended the video. And we like doing all kinds of fun stuff. So leave your comments. Tell us what games you'd like us to try. We're pretty open. I don't think there's a very small list of games that we have already decided we're not going to.
Would you say we're polygamorous, Mike?
We are polygamorous.
Okay.
Not the trademark version of it.
There's no trademark. I don't. There's no trademark.
I think version. We spell it with a U. But let us know, like, subscribe, comment. If you want to catch us on Twitter and all that other jazz, Brent can explain that better than I.
Right. Brent can say, hey, if you want to follow up on any of our socials, just look up at Rolewise and you'll find us. And if you're if you do check us out on our socials, please share our episodes and everything. I always put updates for the episodes. Please share those so people on your feed can see it if you think they'll enjoy it. And if you ever want to reach out to us in email, you can always email us at rollwiseguys@gmail.com. We appreciate you hanging out with us, talking a little bit about Action Economy. And as always, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there, everybody.
See ya.